has to get a price tag. So you've had a lot of conversation about people getting paid in terms of exposure, and it's very hard for artists and creatives to transition from hobbying into businessing. Where do I start? How do I know what to charge? It's a big deal because as creatives, it's not really a problem for us to do it for free. When I was starting off music, I went to every gig I could get, every platform. Be it karaoke's, be it live gigs. I wanted myself out there. I want someone would come up and ask me, hey, you sing really nicely, but how much do you charge? This question of evaluation blew me away. What do you mean, how much? For me, I mean, it's free, I guess. I would do it for free, you know. But eventually, I came to understand the value of what I have. Today, I'm going to be talking about the questions I had to answer along the way and the experiences that I've had to take into account. I'm naturally a very passive person. And when I started off, I brought that personality into the business. Guys, I learned some hard lessons, but that is to your benefit. So lucky you. I started to dig into the market and see how much people were charging. Okay, so where do I lie? It took me a while to actually get an understanding and a feel of where I belong in that range of payment. But here are some questions that you can ask yourself to allow you to get to that place faster. So we have one, costs. Of course, this is business. When it comes to business, you have to account for costs. And I believe a lot of artists don't quite understand what cost is for creative, okay? For creative, cost is not just the instrument, transport, and meals. It includes the effort and the time you have spent in developing your craft. If you've gotten certifications, it's supposed to be accounted for. So you have to account for the cost that it has taken you to get to that place that you've gotten to. For every success story that you see, you do not see the struggle. So how do we account for these costs now? Each job and each project you engage yourself in as a creative is very different. It's not just a standard rate, okay? You will get some projects that will pay really, really well for very little work, and you'll find projects that will really underpay you for a lot of work. So it's very important that you get a balance by asking some of these very important questions, okay? And I also talk about this in an article that I'll be linking down below. It talks about the things you should evaluate about a client before doing, before engaging with them. First thing, which is the load of work, okay? So we're going to take a case example. Assuming someone came to me and said, hey, Jesse, I heard your music, I think you're really good, and I want you to write me a song. Writing a song can mean lyrics and guitar on my phone and send it back to you. Or it could mean a professionally recorded studio track that has a live band and has professional mixing and mastering. And it will cost very different. It's going to be a very different valuation. So for you to be able to give someone the appropriate quote for the work that you're doing, you need to be able to understand the magnitude and the load of work that they're going to hand over to you. Each art form has its own details to ask about, okay? Painters have their own thing. Music producers have their own thing that they need to ask about. Songwriters, the same. Actors, the same. You need to know your craft well enough to be able to know what to inquire about. It's also very important to be able to account for these things and have them written down in a contract. Environmental costs of operation. Here's what I mean. The emotional, psychological, and physical requirements that you need to do your best and operate. You can get clients who, for example, I teach music. You can get a client who is on one end very devoted and very invested in their craft, such that they will do everything and follow your instructions to the latter, and thus they will get results faster, okay? And you will find someone who meets the financial costs, right? They pay you the full amount, sometimes even extra, but they will treat you like trash. These interactions can vary, okay? Difficulties of these can vary because you'll find some people are very toxic. It's kind of like if you go to a work environment, you'll find people who are very warm and very nice. They make you feel at home. It's very important that you find a project or a client giving you the right environmental, meeting your environmental costs, right? So you don't go to a place where you feel undervalued, toxicity. Just avoid those places. If you're gonna do such jobs, you might as well be able to account for it in the billing, right? Market pricing. As always, you should always start the pricing from the market. This goes without saying. It's the basic procedure of how I like to tell my students to do it. If you are not sure how much you should be charging for a certain service, look around. how much are people getting paid, and look at their worth that they provide. So where do I lie in that spectrum? It gives you a nice ballpark of what you should be charging in relation to the market. We're going to be talking about time factors. You will find someone will give you lump sum money, okay, for a project that maybe goes 2-3 weeks, 6 days, depending on the project. Let's take two examples. That's 50K. For example, A is 5 days, and for example, B, it's for 3 weeks, all right? If you take that 50K, it means a lump sum divided by the number of days that you get, and see, is this really the amount I want to get paid? Because the lump sum can blind you, all right? It feels like, hey, today I have just signed a contract for 50,000, but you forget the long term. How much am I really getting paid? Right? Assuming that this was for 3 weeks, you will be getting paid like 2,000 and something for a day. Will you be able to pay your rent for that, week? Will you be able to cater for your transport? The cost that we talked about in number 1. Will you be able to cater for those expenses and still sort you out for profit? What are you willing to get paid per day? It puts everything into perspective, okay? Because a lot of artists and a lot of projects that will come along your way will be projects that will offer you lump sum money. Are you comfortable with it? All right? Don't be blinded by the lump sum. And it also goes for record labels. Record labels, publishing companies will give you an upfront, an advance, that's what they call it, for something that can span over 4 years, depending on the deal that you get yourself into. So keep an eye on that. It's a big, big factor that you need to take into account. This is number 6. The domino effect is almost related to time factor. With intellectual property, it lives outside. It has almost a life of its own, okay? How does you taking on this project inflect on your long term? What are the implications of taking this project in the long term? Am I selling this piece of art one-off price, or am I getting paid an extra on terms of royalties? Can I repurpose this song? Can I release or relicense this piece of art that I have created? Does it give you any additional income in the future? If someone wants full rights, and this is a whole separate topic about intellectual property. If someone wants full rights to your song, you have to charge them for that. If someone wants a non-exclusive license that allows you to resell and repurpose and reuse the song however way you like, then that's a whole other pricing that you need to take into account. But you cannot overlook it. It's also very important, I also have to mention this, that your word of mouth will not quite cut it if things go south contrary to your favor. And I'm also going to be doing a live stream on contract reviews on my TikTok, link in the description. So if you're looking to understand a bit more about contract, let's study through them together. The personal value is very subjective. And it's subjective in that art has no SI unit. It has no standard or metric that can be used to decide what work is better than others. I believe art is for you first, and then it's for everyone else. It has to come from the artist's point of view and the artist's point of valuation, okay? What is the competitive value that I'm offering? This can be social media following, this can be experience, portfolio, and any other thing that you can put on the table to tip the balance, okay? How much am I willing to accept? And this is, I believe, very, very, very important for artists to establish at the beginning. How much are you willing to not accept? Is according to that, the main employee of your business. And as the main employer, you need to make sure that you need to pay yourself enough to keep your motivation up. It's very exciting and it's very fulfilling when an artist discovers that they can get paid for what they love to do. Art is not free because you have invested time, you have invested effort into learning this incredibly technical craft that you now practice. It is valuable. It has to get a price tag. I usually tell my students this: we learn the rules so that we can know how to break them. There are places to break those rules. You can start to build your portfolio by charging less than you should actually charge. Pricing may change depending on the situations. Some situations may have more benefit than the money. Find a situation where you're getting to network with people you'd otherwise not be able to network with, but their budget is quite limited. Do you reject them or do you accept it? You have to decide, but I believe wisdom is the key. You need to decide on what matters to you most. It all boils down to you. You do your research, you network with people, and I highly recommend that you continue to ask questions about the industry, watch interviews, read books, meet new people. That has been today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed and learned. I have dropped an article about the same thing in my description. I do a blog every week, so if you're looking to learn more about that, stay tuned.